Quick disclaimer before this video starts. This video contains flashing lights and loud noises. If you are sensitive to either of these, please click off the video. One more thing before we start. While these games aren't in any specific order, I will be rating them based on quality, atmosphere, and enjoyability on a scale of 1 through 10. Number 1. Apartment 67 is a medium-length horror thriller story game where every choice matters. You start alone in your new apartment facing strange intruders. As you enter the apartment, you immediately see that the apartment itself is poorly lit, having each light a good distance away from the next. You explore the apartment and get familiar with your surroundings until you hear a telephone ringing, which upon answering, you hear sadistic laughter. You explore the house more and see faces in your windows. Something is watching you. Soon after, the power cuts off several times, forcing you to exit your apartment and turn it back on. The apartment becomes distorted. There's blood in areas that were cleaned moments ago. Notes are left where there was no paper, and objects are moved by something other than you. You get locked in your room and are forced to break through the door to escape. You are truly not alone. Red light fills the room, and you are finally allowed to leave your apartment to explore the complex. This is where choices matter the most. In my run, I chose to go to the bottom floor, the basement. I then went up several floors to a distorted room of stairs. If you fell into the void under the stairs, you would reset and an entity would appear in front of you. Eventually, I was able to find a switch that moved the basement wall. The choices you made up until this point block off certain floors in the complex, allowing you to access only a select few. Notes began to appear in the complex and in your apartment, giving clues as to the situation and backstory. In my playthrough, I seemed to be playing as the child who was afraid of his abusive father, who they viewed as the real monster. I once again returned to the distorted apartment and then back to the bedroom. This time, I was able to go to bed, where I then woke up in a sleep paralysis state. The monster stood in the corner of the room until the father came in and killed me. Once again, there are multiple paths and endings to this game, and I encourage you to play it for yourself and see what outcome you get. Apartment 67 receives a 7.5 out of 10 for quality, for its well-designed spaces, good jump scares, clean lighting, diverse floors, and progression system. I enjoyed the spread of dark and light on each floor, and how they changed and further developed into the story. For that reason, Apartment 67 receives an 8 out of 10 for atmosphere, simply because, while changes to the floors were refreshing and entertaining, they became somewhat predictable near the end. Even if the game became predictable, the experience was enjoyable for the entirety of its play, earning it an 8.5 out of 10. Number 2. No Players Online was the first game I played while making this list, and set a very high standard for everything that followed. The quality of the game was outstanding, and honestly made me forget I was playing a Roblox game. This is on par with an indie game like the original Five Nights at Freddy's or Layers of Fear. If this list was ranked, it would easily take first or second place. The game starts off innocently enough and slowly gets darker the longer you play. A key factor to this is the music box you can find after taking the first enemy flag. If you destroy it, an entity will join your game and begin to alter it. As you continue to play, the entity becomes more aggressive until eventually the creator joins to talk to you personally. After a very one-sided conversation, you are presented with a choice to leave the game in order to allow the creator to help the entity that has been terrorizing you, or deliver the flag and destroy the game entirely. I chose to destroy the game in the end, but I encourage you to try the other option for yourself and leave a comment with what happens. By far the best part of the experience was the psychological aspect. You will begin to see the entity just out of view and snap towards it, only for it to be gone and leave you with a feeling of being watched. The quality is up there with the most critically acclaimed games on Roblox, and, as mentioned previously, seemed like something you'd find on itch.io as a legitimate indie horror. For that reason, No Players Online earns a 9.5 out of 10 for its quality. The atmosphere is retro, dark, and grainy, providing a very realistic feel that makes it feel almost all too real. For that, it earns an 8.5 out of 10 on the scale. I thoroughly enjoyed this game and even debated playing it again to take the different paths and make different choices. However, the gameplay ultimately narrows down to a walking simulator with added spice. Even if that is the case, this earns an 8 out of 10 on the scale. Number 3. Up next, we have The Beyond Darkness. From my experience, this game is best enjoyed in multiplayer, but the footage shown is from solo gameplay. This was by far the highest quality game on the list, with a starting cutscene, a tutorial, a well-designed map, and a top-tier jump scare. The goal of the game was to survive for a designated time while a monster attempts to break into your house. In the beginning, you can purchase upgrades in the starting screen that will help your run. These include cameras, alarms, and wooden planks. The quality of the game is a perfect 10 out of 10, and the atmosphere of the house and eerie surroundings are a solid 7 out of 10 on the scale. As for enjoyability, this ranks the lowest on the list, as I found myself getting bored after the first several minutes of gameplay. The task of running around, closing windows and doors becomes trivial after the first few actions. This left me bored, and eventually, I left them open to see what the monster looked like. The sheer repetitiveness of the game earns this a 5 out of 10 for enjoyability, but I'm sure the experience earns a higher rank when played with other players and upgrades. Number 4. I found Mugen to be both the most interesting experience and the one with the most potential. The game itself is a hub for various other games and experiences. Inside the hub is a giant blue ball that says cryptic and disturbing things such as, "Welcome to Hell." The experience can be accessed through various paintings. I chose one called Man of Seven Shingles. I can't really describe the experience or give a solid rundown as I don't entirely understand it myself. As you could guess, you're a man with 7 shingles on their body. You explore the cave with odd objects in your hotbar that seem to serve little to no purpose or end up just killing you as the wrench did. As odd as this may be, this doesn't compare to what lies further in the cave. As you pass the giant rusted hamster wheel, you pick up an oxygen tank and descend into the cave, where you are chased by a giant head that eats you. This was one of the biggest jump scares out of all of the games for me and left my heart racing. After that death, I figured I would leave it up to the more skilled players to find out what lies past the giant head and in the other paintings. The game itself is on a very large scale, and with many experiences inside of it. Each of these does their job well. Because of that, this earns an 8.5 out of 10 for quality. The atmosphere does its job all too good as well. The cryptic tones of the hub and the cave send shivers down your spine and make you feel as if you've been transported to another dimension. This earns the game a 9 out of 10 for atmosphere. I found the game very interesting, and if given more time, I would play it many times over to discover the secrets. For a final score, Mugen earns an 8 out of 10 for enjoyability. Number 5. As the final entry, we have Mental Assistance Department. This game is essentially a puzzle that takes you through the story of a psychiatric office with a dark secret. The game as a whole is more disturbing than scary. You start off in front of the office, only to discover upon entry that it's empty. After moving a desk to a vent and finding 2 keys inside, you continue to the various offices inside the department, each more disturbing than the last. The first instance of human life you find proves to be not alive at all. Various notes hidden around hint at sinister experiments, which you soon find after entering the final door. All test subjects have died. You enter the basement and find the serum that was made as a result of the testing, which transports you to another game upon consumption. This world is devoid of all color and most light. Infant cries lead you to various pictures around the map, and when clicked, create new parts of a path that lead to the end of the game. The entire map is very off-putting, the cries only adding to its disturbing nature. The path leads to an entrance, which, upon coming in contact with shows a flashback. You then enter a dark room, which upon entering leads to a memory fragment. The experience ends there. There are several other games made by the same creator which add upon the story. I would love to expand upon this further in future videos if desired. This game came out this year, but seems slightly lower quality than the rest on this list. The models look clunky and outdated. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it doesn't make it the most pleasant to look at and play. For that reason, the quality score comes out as a 6 out of 10. The atmosphere of the office and the world you get transported to are surprisingly off-putting, but it's a little too dark in terms of lighting. The office section earns an 8.5 out of 10, and the second world earns an 8 out of 10. The game seemed almost too long near the end, and left me wondering when it was actually going to end. I enjoyed how it made you think and use environmental clues to solve puzzles to reach the end of the experience. However, this also boiled down to another walking simulator near the end. As a whole, the enjoyability of this game is a 7.5 out of 10.